RNG are 1-0 up over Team WE in this best-of-3 series, and as much as a lot of people would remember them as being the semi-finalists from Worlds last year, they have very different stories at the moment. However, in that last match, it was relatively close between the two teams, and I didn't quite expect that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it came down to draft phase. I think it took a while for RNG to recognize when their power window was and how to execute on the draft. A couple of fumbles there, but I think the main takeaway is that Team WE are showing evolution even over the course of their losses, and that's the important thing as a WE fan to like grab hold of. Like, it's not over. We're still hanging on to the door. You know, Rose hasn't lifted our hands up and let us sink to the bottom just yet.
Oh no, not yet, but might be soon for Team WE. They need to try and pick up as many points as possible. A win against RNG would be a big one, but a lot of teams have been scoring points against RNG recently. We saw FPX take them down. Rogue Warriors were able to take them down as well. It'd be insult to injury again if WE are able to turn around this best-of-3 series. But it seems like RNG starting with Able now, they're starting to throw away the mix of strategies they used to use and trying to play a little bit more standard in these matches.
Yeah, and it's also the fact that Able isn't quite syncing up with them. I think RNG had a great draft, and it was very clear, like you're saying, bringing Able back in. Maybe you're doing that simply because you're preparing for Uzi to come back into the roster, but I also think they weren't finding the same success with Let Me and Zatai onto the roster. And now Able just needs to fine-tune some of his decision-making in team fights, specifically his positioning, and RNG will look top tier again.
I mean, it's a good decision as well. We see other teams like Snake doing a very similar thing where they brought Light back into the roster, even though they can still use the similar strategies they're using before, almost as if anticipating the upcoming changes. I mean, there's been a lot of news saying that they don't, like, Riot doesn't want to remove mages from the bottom lane, but definitely wants to buff up AD carries so that they have a better home down there. So it makes sense to use someone like Able, who is a good AD carry in his own right, but just seems like the team, as you were talking about, isn't meshing with Able. Leaving him alone during an entire team fight when he's the player that's dealing the most damage just feels weird to watch when you're watching RNG of all teams.
I don't necessarily really mind it because I still feel like RNG put together a composition where they had carry threats and damage threats across the roster. You know, having access like the Cho'Gath. We know how Let Me likes to play it. Having Shahu on the likes of Vladimir, but I'm actually just really curious about the Ezreal pick. Like, I understand you want him to be self-sufficient because your Cho'Gath and your Rakan in this composition are supposed to dive backline, and so Ezreal is safe, can kind of handle himself, so Ming doesn't have to babysit him. But where's the Varus? We see Varus overtaking LCK right now using the lethality style of build that Deft used the other night that we saw Prey use before, and I expected Mystic and Able both to grab this champion, especially because mages are still quite prolific in the bottom lane.
Varus technically a mage anyway. He needs an AD carry, but
lethality build, fish. Lethality build.
Just throw a couple of gold Veeb arrows in there. Be great to watch. But for this match, they haven't picked it up yet. We expect Varus to be a very strong pick, especially with the hotfix changes he had on 8.13, giving him a nice buff. And the recent itemization experiments that we saw from the LCK that they can creep over to the LPL with running Varus. The bottom lane is going to be a curious match to watch between Mystic 694 as well as Able and Ming.
See, they know exactly what's up. The one true support, the true hunk.
He is the alpha carry.
As you saw on your screen, though, it's Condi that's being subbed up and Pepper being subbed back in. So the musical chairs of Team WE's roster continues. If you don't know anything about Pepper, if you're just tuning back into the LPL, he was the former jungler of FPX. They played in our earlier series across from Vici today, taking the win. And he moved over into Team WE just as Condi was announced to come back into the roster, which was a super curious move.
That was really weird.
Because why would you choose to play behind the best jungler in the LPL?
And it also it felt really awkward because Pepper in FPX when he started in Spring was this aggressive jungler. He wanted to fight whenever he possibly could. And slowly over the course of Spring Split, it seems like once Cool got added to the roster, they held Pepper back a little bit, said calm down, don't fight as often. He became a more control style jungler, so it was strange to see him move from FPX, this aggressive team, over to WE with this control style play after transitioning the exact same jungle pattern.
Which tells me that the adjustment with WE and about using Condi and Pepper isn't about style. You know, this isn't an SKT situation where, not former or today SKT, but former SKT, where you have like a very aggressive jungler and then you have a very controlled jungler and you play these different styles. Because people looked at this like, oh, Pepper will play the early game, Condi will play the late game. This is what they're going to do. No, they play the same champions. They play very similar styles right now. It tells me that there's problems that are happening in the intangibles. You know, how the team is communicating, what they're doing with their synergy, and maybe even slightly what's happening in draft phase, but it's obviously trying to figure out what the problem is with Team WE as opposed to trying to fix what the problem is with Team WE.
So band-aid solutions at the moment. Try and pull in Pepper, see if that's going to be a big improvement. Whereas for RNG, they're no strangers to these swaps of jungle. Still going to be Kasa playing. But if bringing in Pepper is a band-aid solution for WE, what is the difference between Kasa as well as MLXG? Because they've been swapping in and out for the entire year.
If it's, you know, the kingdom of RNG, MLXG is the court jester. And don't get me wrong, he is excellent at his job. The king thinks it's hilarious, but he still has that wild card factor, whereas Karsa is a bit more even-keeled. It feels like MLXG, RNG play around him, whereas when Karsa is on the roster, that Karsa plays around the RNG laners. There's also slight differences in the champion select, although on 8.13 that started to disappear a bit more.
We also know that MLXG is the alpha of the two junglers. They played a game together and
You
Kasa
funneled for me.
Kasa had to play Braum, and it was actually a very fun game to watch because you pointed it out to me that there were a few times where Kasa was going back to the lane and saying, hey, come get all this farm. And then he'd have to leave it because MLXG's pulled him over somewhere to go for a fight instead of trying to kill Krugs or something.
They weren't quite on the same page in terms of their pacing or tempo through the jungle.
But they eventually won that match. Still running Kasa in this game now, going up against Pepper. Gonna be curious to see if that brings any changes with WE, because they are very similar junglers. With Shahu on your screen now, he's been quite outspoken about how he hates the cold and hates spring for that reason, but summer is his time to shine. As you said earlier, though, we haven't seen him go into 6th gear yet. We haven't seen him take that one step further, and he does get a playoff buff. We know that Shahu during playoffs and international events can perform incredibly well, but during the regular season, we haven't seen those flashes of brilliance as often as we'd like.
I think that's just the motto almost for RNG, is that they're clutch players. You have someone like Uzi, Letme, and Shahu. They show up when it matters, which is why I was still excited coming into Team WE versus RNG, because while in the standings you look at this super heavy favor to RNG, like, put this one on the TiVo, I can skip it, I know exactly what's going to happen. But Team WE have this tendency that when they face RNG, that they play up, and what that does is it forces RNG to remind everyone that they're the greatest team in the world because they are so clutch. You know, the fact that WE are charging down their mid lane and RNG turn it around instantaneously and put everyone in their place.
Sums it up, but there's been an interesting turn of events over the past week of the LPL. We saw, as we talked about earlier, RNG dropping 2 games. One to Rogue Warriors, we'd be like, yeah, I could see that. 1 out of 10 games, probably RNG would lose a match here and there. So Rogue Warriors able to pick up a win. It was a great win for Rogue Warriors as well. But then FPX were able to take down RNG on top of that.
Terrible drafts.
Terrible draft.
I'm just going to come out and say it. Hart, you have my support, buddy. Obviously, you've made a championship team. Please don't draft like that again.
Oh, no.
Love you.
Or tweet
Sincerely, FLICKR.
Or tweet at FLICKR to find out what you should draft in your next match, Hart.
P.S. Get a different tie.
Whereas for the side of WE, it's been the opposite. They were sitting at a single win for the entire split until this week, where they took down Sunic, which was quite crucial for Sunic's conference, because now they're tied up for the 4th place spot, and had to have given some hope over to WE that they can make that late run.
And an issue was that I feel that Team WE just aren't very proactive. If you haven't seen the Suning versus WE match, it was a bit back and forth, it was a bit long, and it was a bit kind of one of those matches where I just felt frustrated watching it. I was like, WE, you are so strong right now, just use your strength. And I don't know if that's communication, that people aren't talking about their windows about when they feel strong, or if it's indecision, but whatever it is, just be confident, just go for the play.
I mean, I opened the show with Raz earlier today, where we looked back at Tuesday as well as Wednesday's matches, and when we brought up a replay of WE against Suning during rehearsals, Raz had a very long-winded point about the current standings of the two teams. And when he stopped, the team fight was only halfway done. And he just turned to me and said, I don't know what else to say at this point. This team fight's still going. And with WE winning over an Elder Dragon fight with 1 member alive. But been surprising us in this match against RNG. Lots of nice movements coming out from them. We still see that strong early game, but no synergy in their team fights just yet. And it seems like their mid-game is kind of where teams try to take advantage of W at the moment, which is a very important part of the current meta. Mid to... Can you even call it late game anymore if late game is effectively 35 minutes now and not the 60 minutes that we saw last split?
I mean, frankly, mid-game has always been the most important part of League of Legends. It's just very hard to track it because it's very easy to understand late game. You see these massive, you know, football teams effectively approaching each other and just these big, brawling team fights. early game, it's usually about the ganks. You know, it's very easy to visually tell, oh, that guy killed that guy. They must be doing well in the early game. Whereas mid game is so much more subtle about tempo shifts and who's making the right macro plays and how you're setting it up and when you're getting your item timings, where you're prioritizing feeding that gold in. And for the LPL specifically, how you set up your vision, which is non-existent with so many teams. I don't want to go back to that meme because it got better, and it has been better than it has been in the past, but with AD carries not on a lot of LPL rosters and them looking for mages, they just stall out. They don't know how to play around the vision to help the mages siege the tower, and they're like, why isn't my AD carry hitting this structure? Why is this game getting stalled out in an A ramp? Where's my Varus?
I believe this was something that we always look towards the LCK and be like, hey, LPL teams, we love your bloodiness. We love that you like to fight all the time. We love that you're brawl heavy. Can you please watch an LCK VOD and learn how to ward for once? Buy a ward, stop a gank, save a life, win the game.
It used to be the difference that the LPL would force fights, but the LCK would manufacture fights. The fact that they can play around the vision denial game, they set up the traps, and then they lure teams into them with superior vision and collapse and tear them apart, whereas the LPL just starts swinging wildly, and they're like, if they get you, they pop you like a balloon, but it's can they catch you?
Okay, if that's the case, does that mean EDG is the closest to what we have to an LCK team? It doesn't feel quite that, right? Because they're the setup team.
They are.
But do they set up into a trap, or do they set up into actually snowballing a fight instead?
The difference is especially if you really start doing the homework and the VOD review into EDG, it's about the setup time. Edward Gaming are the only team in the LPL that will set up a play 7 minutes in advance, which is incredibly rare in League of Legends. Most of the time, and this is based off of timers. Most of the time, you can say that a team will set up a play 5 minutes in advance because you're looking at the red and the blue buff timers, you know, moving in, setting down your vision. Like, that's a very apparent one to watch. But Edward Gaming, they do it around power spikes. And if they say, okay, I need this much time to acquire this item to set up these waves and then have the Rift Herald, like, it's a multi-step plan. It's not just a single, you know, 2-step plan. Grab Rift Herald, make sure that I back at this time when you have the Rift Herald so we back together, get back onto the map, set the minion wave, and then go for the mid tower with the Rift Herald. Like, that's a very simple 1-2-step plan that maybe takes 3 to 5 minutes to set up, depending on when your backs are. But Edward Gaming will know, okay, and then I'll have this item, I'll make sure that my TP is here, his TP is there, and not only will we take that mid lane tower, but then we're also going to have the flank ready, get the team fight, and suddenly EDG just blow a game open in 23 minutes. But that's how they do it. Their playbooks are so extensive, whereas most of the LPL teams are like reactionary. 45 seconds, I want a team fight, take everything.
That sounds like Snake and Rogue Warriors in a nutshell. It's like, can we fight? We can fight? Let's fight. Fight? I think that word should be banned in the team comps. You're just not allowed to say fight as an LPL team, because as soon as one person says it, it just catches on like the common cold.
I mean, if you listen to our mic checks, a lot of them don't. A lot of them say, play
80,
it
80,
slow,
80.
Play it slow, slow it down, slow it down, speed it up, speed it up.
All I hear is 80 when I listen to those mic checks.
You're listening to the bottom teams, Fish. Listen to the top teams.
If you haven't listened to RNG's mic checks, especially the ones they had around MSI, those are fantastic to listen to, because you just hear, it sounds chaotic, but when you actually break it down and read the transcripts of what the team said, it makes a ton of sense, and they actually communicate in a chaotic fashion, but with some synergy and some cohesion to actually get across what they want to do in the actual match.
Again, I felt that at MSI, when I predicted that RNG would always beat Fnatic, it came from this base idea that RNG were always going to be better team fighters than Fnatic. Whereas Fnatic were known for their team fighting in Europe, and Europe has gotten better right now. I think that they're team fighting better than they did back in spring. But the reality of the situation is that Fnatic were never able to flank or coordinated extended team fights attacking from multiple positions. And casting so much of the LPL, it really does train you as a caster. Like, every North American casters, European casters, LCK, LPL, we all view the game differently because our teams train us to think about it differently. That's the whole thing with regional metas. And the LPL is so much more sophisticated about how they dissect and attack a team fight.
Which is why we view team fighting as a must-have for the top teams in the LPL, something that WE have been struggling with, and RNG have been shaky recently with their team fights without Uzi as their starting AD carry on the roster. They're going to be sticking with Abel for this second match. It's only WE that have brought in a substitute, and that's going to be Pepper heading into the jungle for WE. Their bans, Talia, Camille, as well as Rakan for the side of RNG, Aatrox, Swain, and Orianna get taken away.
I like the fact that Team W are committing towards kind of this Ashe Tom Kench. Now, the Ashe hasn't been revealed yet, but RNG are definitely daring Team WE to grab it. By having the priority pick of the Trundle, not only does it fit in that they have a great dueling jungler, which offers them gank pressure on multiple lanes because of Pillar, but it is so dangerous to play Ashe into Trundle because of how fragile and how much lack of mobility that she has, and then you now have a Braum on top of it. So even with the Tahm Kench, it's still going to be a risk on how comfortable Mystic is to play a very low mobility ADC into those two picks.
This Freylord combo has become increasingly popular when you're second pick in the LPL. I mean, this week alone, we've seen a ton of Trundles being picked up. You could say for WE that they have the Tahm Kench available, so even if they do pick Ashe and get separated by a Pillar, could be saved by 694, but even in the last game alone, we saw so much of 694 trying to save Mystic just not be enough because the follow-up was too good coming out from the rest of RNG. They still lock in Nah as their top lane pick of choice, waiting to see what their final pick will be during the first draft phase, hovering over a bunch of different AD carries, but eventually settle back for Ashe.
And you can see that Mystic was sliding through the options. You know, do I completely take it out of the equation, go for the Mordekaiser? Do I look for something with more security and safety like the Tristana and the Lucian, but decides to make the trust fall with Team WE with 694, formerly known as Celestial, down there and say, okay, I see the Freylord bot, or I see the Freylord combo. Can you keep me safe? Now, I would actually expect that instead of Kai'Sa, that they would grab the Kennen here because they know that the Gnar is going top. But this just tells me that Let Me is fine, you know, taking that matchup from the back foot and not grabbing the immediate pick that would have some power and control back in that 1v1. So I expect Team WE to ban the Kennen here.
Still means that RNG can choose between Shahu or Let Me to get their counter pick with their final pick. I mean, they've already seen the Gnar, so potentially both for RNG here. Kai'Sa was locked in, going into the second ban phase now. Zoe was hovered by RNG earlier, but not picked up, so that's banned away by WE, something you have to take away from Shahu. He's shown he can play it in multiple lanes as well. Bottom side of the map, he can play in the mid lane on top of that. Very scary when he gets those champions, but it's one of the champions that is a band-aid solution for Shahu at the moment.
Which means that if you ban both Zoe and Vladimir, you're automatically putting Shahu on something that he hasn't been able to perform as strong on, which he does have the Rise. He could reach for that as well as the Orianna if they've come back into LCK and LPL status. But it just doesn't feel quite the same as his Zoe Vladimir performance.
Still plenty of mid lane bans though. Some of them are flex picks, but Talia, Zoe being taken away by WE, Galio, LeBlanc, Swain, and Orianna being banned out by RNG. So that mid lane champion pool is getting smaller and smaller for both Sia as well as Shahu.
I think you grab Rise here. Rise is a great combo with Trundle. You could grab your top laner. We expected that the Kennen would be banned and then try to get the counter pick. But again, Shahu just doesn't have the champion pool size or the effective champion pool size to make the most use out of that. So I like the fact that kind of the last piece of the puzzle will be Let Me, despite the fact that they see it is Gnar, to round out not just the 1v1 matchup of Gnar versus X, but how the composition will play the team fight.
And we get to see what Sia decides to throw into the Rise as his counter pick of choice. Lots of his champions have been taken away. This is a very WE focused pick, but we'll find out next time on Dragon Ball Z if we actually get the Jarvan for
I'm
WE.
telling you, we just got the abridged version. You're just getting all the good highlights. Get to hang out with us.
How far in the future do we skip to in a bit?
I think we're actually on live, so we can't skip that far.
But we do get the Jarvan lock-in. I thought we could actually time travel.
Nope.
I know the game hasn't started, but it'd be cool.
Boom, Aurelia.
Aurelia locked in. That'll be the mid lane pick for Sia with Jarvan in the jungle for Pepper.
It is one of Pepper's signature picks. He has gone on record in an interview saying, if you give me Jarvan, you will lose the game. So Pepper, nut up or shut up.
Nice combos coming out for WE as well. They've got the Gnar as well as Jarvan combo with their ultimates synergizing well. And good single target damage that will come out for both Aurelia as well as Ashe in this match. Final pick for RNG is going to be Let Me's champion of Ornn in the top lane.
And we had this conversation at the start of the draft phase, and it seems to have come to fruition. Let Me is fine playing the back foot into the Gnar matchup. He picked a tank. Gnar, of course, going for the Blade of the Rim King if he wants to play that side lane, is going to be quite devastating to Let Me up there, but it's still so hard to move an Ornn, and it is so much easier to execute on the team fights. And RNG do this all the time. They have no problem sacrificing the 1v1 matchups because they know that when it comes push to shove, it's their team fighting that has defined them as the best in the world.
However, coming into this match, do you feel like RNG going to be lacking a little bit of physical damage? Because with Ornn as well as Trundle and Braum locked in as the tanky front line, and then a Rise as well as a Kai'Sa, unless Abel goes towards a crit build with the Stormrazor, it's going to be a lot of ability power that's being thrown out by RNG.
I mean, that's always going to be a factor, but that means that you just need to hit earlier before a lot of those resistances come in, and then you also have to have faith that Team WE will be able to itemize for an advantage like that.
Hitting early against WE doesn't sound like an easy task at the moment, because yes, they're faltering in their current ladder position, but their early game has been relatively strong recently. It's the mid game where RNG should be able to attack them, but I'm curious to see with these almost comfort picks that are coming out for WE, how they attack RNG.
And it's not necessarily early game in terms of the lane phase. Looking at both compositions across the map, it feels really good for WE because they have the Aurelia, they have the Jarvan, they should have a good rotation into River or River control. Gnar into Ornn, you expect that Gnar is going to be able to pick at Ornn to really make his life hell, and then you have so much safety between the Ashe and the Tahm Kench that Pepper should be able to give a lot of his attention and focus between that mid and top lane. But come mid-game, when that Ornn is unlocked, when it's kind of the first big team fight, the first big 5v5 of the series, that's when RNG can really strike back before WE's composition kind of comes back online around the 3-item mark.
Plenty of ways to lock down Mystic especially. I mean, yes, Tahm Kench can save him, but when you're up against a Braum, a Trundle, as well as a Ornn, and then a Kai'Sa who can dive onto you, as well as a Ryze who can do the same thing and bring the entire team with him, almost seems like Mystic as well as 694 have their work cut out for them going into this second match, but it's still a die for WE. They want to tie this one up and head over to Game 3 to have to win here against RNG, whereas RNG will desperately be looking for a 2-0 after a couple of upsets. Let's get on to Summoner's Rift for match number 2.
The drums of Xi'an. We have 6 stadiums in the LPL, and Xi'an is by far the largest, 1,000 strong. So you can hear the boom of the crowd. That's because there's a lot of people sitting there.
Plenty of RNG fans as well have traveled to Xi'an Stadium to watch their team go up against the hometown favorites of WE, but definitely not the favorites going into this matchup.
And what's so cool is if you're a history fan, Xi'an used to be the old capital of China, whereas of course the current capital of China is Beijing, which I think is just so beautifully mirrors the story of World Elite and RNG. You know, the current kings and Royal Never Give Up get to sit in their Beijing palace and look over the world, whereas World Elite, now known as Team WE, the former emperors, sit in the former capital of China, just waiting to rise again.
I mean, WE have such a long history at that too. If you create an account on any one of the Chinese servers here in China, immediately you get a Team WE icon. Just, there you go. There's the old icon of World Elite.
IPL 5, it buys you that stuff, baby.
All the way back from IPL 5, where WE at the time were best team in the world, were unstoppable, almost.
And this is why we have to have, you know, this default to trust. Team WE, it doesn't look great right now. A lot of it looks like it's just a grease fire and they're trying to put out the flames and nothing is helping. But at the end of the day, they have proven that people like Xie, like Condi, that they can create stars. And so just give them time.
Give them time, see if they can get back into the LPL, potentially try and make a late run for the World Championship later on in this year. But a team that we have a lot of expectations towards at the moment is going to be RNG. This is the champions from MSI. They've had an immaculate split so far, and a lot of people think that they're going to try and take every damn trophy they can this split, from the last year Cups all the way to World Championships to LPL to All-Stars. They want all of them, especially after Uzi's drought of never winning anything.
Now, focusing back onto this game, we do need to take stock of how the lane matchups have worked.
Because it is Shahu in the top lane, but he's being ganked. Flashes away.
Good flash.
Pepper going to try and predict that as well. Pillar going to separate these two as they turn this one back around. Kai'Sa jumping on top of Pepper. Double buff to the top lane as Shahu has lane swapped once again, and this is going to be a nightmare for 957.
Just so devastating right there. I loved what they were trying to do. Okay, first and foremost, great job from RNG. They recognize what the lane assignments are. They decide to flex Let Me into that mid lane playing the Ornn. They've done it multiple times before to make sure that he doesn't get abused by the Gnar matchup. Now what this does is it leaves Shahu exposed because he can push and he can trade against the Gnar. Ooh. And Pepper, who should be rewarded for such a kick-ass flash, that is really hard combo to do on the Jarvan flag and drag, and then to flash to make sure that your hitbox finds the knockup anyway. unfortunately trades over the red buff because it's just a great read by Karsa.
Good play coming out from Pepper, but miscommunication. Both 957 as well as Pepper throwing out their crowd control at the exact same time.
I mean, if Karsa's not there, you still find that kill no matter what. Yes, you're correct. Not perfectly played, but again, I just want to credit Karsa the fact that, okay, Shahu's extended in this lane. This is why we made this lane swap, so we could have situations like this. I need to be topside and just create this safety blanket, right place, right time.
I like that you mentioned the swap earlier because, as you said, not the first time we've seen this from RNG. In fact, at Rift Rivals, their final match, they did this exact same thing. And we got to listen in to the comms, which were on the mic check after Rift Rivals, and it was a very calculated decision coming out from RNG, and they were actually very happy with sending Shahu to the top lane, because whenever they get a good matchup in both lanes, they can do it. A lot of other teams would just simply swap the champions around. But for RNG, throw the players in different positions. I mean, they play every single damn position for the team anyway without Uzi on the roster. Might as well.
And them and Snake Esports are really the only teams in the LPL that have this much flexibility where their mid laner feels confident playing top, mid, and bottom, where their top laner also feels confident playing top, mid, and bottom. In fact, both mid laners.
I mean, as much as he's been feeling confident, Shahu, as we've talked about this entire series, hasn't had the best of splits. He's a solid mid laner, but just not the next level big tiger that we expect from RNG to try and carry these games, especially now that they don't have Uzi thanks to his current shoulder injury.
But he is one of the best Rise players in the world. How he uses the Realm Warp, especially when RNG are setting up 3-wave sieges where all 3 lanes are shoving in when they have Baron. RNG used to hold the record in 2017 of being the fastest team to close once they had Baron. They almost did it instantaneously on a single Baron spawn, and a lot of that was because Shahu, one of his most played champions, was Rise, and how he used the minion drop with the Realm Warp was pitch perfect every time. So if they get the Baron, if they get into one of those situations, it's so practiced, it's so fun to watch, and just make sure that you're taking notes about how to play all of your siege lanes with Shahu on Rise.
Because it's not just delivering the minions to different turrets or further into
it's timing it as well.
It's timing it. We've even seen him drop his support or his jungler into the back lines like MLXG or Ming and just destroy a team when they didn't expect a fight to take place, which might happen to RNG here. Could both Seer as well as Pepper are grouping up for a gank at the bottom lane. Ming and Abel are half health. Some of the spells are available.
There's double teleport.
But it is a cleanse for Abel and not a heal. Teleport's being channeled and Karsa is running into the lane. Good timing from RNG means they stop the teleport halfway and defuse that gank for now.
Yeah, and that was the key thing there, and that's why Abel and Ming were there. If you watched Karsa, his pathing was all the way behind. RNG 100% knew that a dive was potential, and so normally you say, why aren't Ming and Abel trying to back up into safety? Why are they letting the gank go through? It's because they knew that they had access to double teleport. It was just Let Me's TP that goes down. Obviously the closest one that now he can actually just walk in and probably join the back half of fights if Team WE want to try that maneuver again. But because 957 got punished in the top lane, he was forced into an early teleport. And because Aurelia got punished in the mid lane due to the lane swap, she was also forced into an early teleport. And that's what RNG banked on.
They still have teleport for Rise, but they're trying to jump on towards Let Me. Charges away. Teleport now being thrown into the mid lane.
He's gonna grab her.
One ultimate comes out. CF flashes away nice and early. Still gets knocked up, but Shahu trying to get a combo onto Pepper. Trying to get towards safety of his turret. But 694 is there to save him before anything else can happen. RNG turn around the gank.
Good response. 694 was just coming back off spawn. You can look at the bottom of your map and see that Mystic is walking back into the lane, so is able to get there just in the nick of time. He was actually going to place wards into the river. Not the best timing for RNG. If the support hadn't been there, that would have been a kill.
Good reactionary play nonetheless. If they wanted to get that kill, just not enough. But that does mean the teleport from Shahu is down as well. So WE will get their teleport advantage. Mystic is running teleport on Ashe here. Still has that.
The important thing is now there's no double teleport to dissuade Team WE from abusing this Ashe Tahm Kench and the push that they have. But meanwhile, top.
Dropship towards the top lane. 957's flash is not available just yet, but is level 6. Teleports behind them, but immediately a teleport coming out from RNG as well. 957, the first of 4. Teleports are going to get cancelled, and another easy pick for RNG.
Multiple uses of TP just to make power moves across the map for RNG. But again, the play still stands for WE. If they want to try to neutralize what's happening top lane, reset, and then try to punish bot lane, there's now no more teleports for RNG, and they can make the most of this Ashe push.
However, that top center map is being punished, as you talked about. It's 2 kills going over to Shahu now. Already completed his Ninja Tabby, but hasn't picked up his Tear of the Goddess just yet, sitting on double mana crystal for the moment.
Oh no, the hawkshot didn't see him.
So Let Me still going to be able to get that flank. The ward spots him out eventually. Winter's Bite doesn't connect, and Mystic turns around, gets good damage on towards Abel. RNG, although they had the flank from Let Me, just mis-executed a couple of their skill shots.
Say what you will about Mystic, he definitely had a very rough start to summer. It was also a pretty rough spring. But when he's on his ass, he just looks like a completely different player. Able to sidestep, gives him enough confidence to turn around so much damage on Abel and Ming. And RNG, they need to put out the fire down here.
This bottom lane is getting out of control. It's the second time we've seen this too. Mystic has been leading in CS against Abel 2 matches in a row now. But bottom lane outer turret is falling drastically low. We know that WE have put a lot of focus towards that bottom lane turret, but at this rate, it's just going to fall naturally.
Which means that they have the option where, like you're saying, you either throw everything in the kitchen sink down into that bottom lane and make the safety for Mystic and Tahm Kench to shove it down, or you now use them as a massive pressure draw, know that RNG must respond to them, and then use that numbers advantage elsewhere on the map, like trying to dig your Gnar out of a hole.
It's 957, 57 CS to the 70 of Shahu. Don't be confused, it's not Let Me that's been in that top lane, that's been Rise. Shahu crucially has picked up 2 kills for himself, and it was a late Tear of the Goddess that he picked up, but still very far ahead on this Rise. 957's been stuck underneath this turret. It's a good trade there, knocks Shahu down to just above half health, giving some breathing room for 957, but he is nowhere close out of the woods anytime soon.
And I feel like because Shahu does have access to his flash, that it doesn't make sense for Team WE to try to make a counterplay here. So I like the fact that they are going to create the safety net. You can see that Pepper is on top of Mystic and Tahm Kench, trying to lay down vision and give them the space necessary to push forward and unlock them from the lane. Because unlocking the Ash Arrow is probably the best answer for Team WE to continue to propel this game forward in their advantage.
Yeah, you get them, see it. Get all their minions.
Just looks impressive, doesn't it?
Clears up the entire mid lane. So Let Me just charges back in and
can't
kills
mess with that guy. He knows how to press his buttons. Ooh.
Now do it in a team fight. It's just been wave clearing. Mid lane's back and forth between C as well as Let Me. Top side of the map has been Shahu aggressively pushing in. Now, not too much ability power for Rise, nor attack damage, so slowly chips away at these turrets.
This is dangerous. So Carson's looking for a gank from the lane phase, because again, he knows that they want to shove up. Right now, Team WE have multiple teleports. They could actually get more numbers down here. Here we go.
They already have Pepper right behind their turret as well, so they're going to try and turn this one around. Immediately, teleports coming out for both teams. Abel forced to use plans to try and turn away, and it's a trap, Frosker, and you're absolutely right. Sia trying to dive back into this fight. They have the safety of their turret, but Cataclysm locks 2 in there with him. Sia dives even further forward, and 694 going to save him for now. Let Me wants the snipe, gets the snipe, and good damage on the 694 as well. The last second Grey Health keeps 694 alive. Abel wants to turn this one back around, but it will be Let Me that falls. WE pull off the counter-gank.
I see you, Let Me. You eventually fell, but I saw some nice mechanics right there. And like I was saying, RNG, they fall for the trap. Team WE had the TP timers. RNG did not. They had multiple members in there, and the unfortunate thing is that it's a Rise in the top lane. So of course Team WE, their tower was shorter, they're able to shove it down, and there's not actually a huge answer for the top side.
Pepper was waiting in the wings for this play for so long. Irelia swapped to top side, teleported in, even Gnar wanted to join this fight too. Big win for WE.
And again, it goes back to the fact that they were able to get there, they had a better position, and also the tower is much lower. Now I do want to say, good job, Let Me. He has the snipe with the ultimate, make sure that Xie isn't punished, and look what he does to Pepper. Not today. I'm not getting flag dragged. He still goes down, but I was impressed.
Good plays coming out from Let Me. He's been a standout top laner for RNG.
One might even say world class.
He is world class, but he's picked up an MSI trophy. Let Me was playing well at that tournament. Some people were questioning, hey, how come you're bringing Let Me over to die? Everyone thought that it'd be the 2 junglers. Everyone thought that it'd be Tatai and the 2 junglers that went to MSI, and some people were quite shocked by Let Me being the starting and only top laner for RNG, but proved his worth and has come back 10 times stronger as well. He's one of the most consistent performers for RNG recently.
And one of the longest standing members of the RNG roster and franchise. You know, so many people have such a short memory that they think that RNG was just built around Uzi, and do not get me wrong, he is definitely a franchise player, but this RNG, before Uzi was even back on the roster, was built around Shahu. and one of the longest standing players that have played with Shahu is Letme. So some quick bromance coming through there and offering a great support staff to just cherry on top. There's Uzi.
It's been looking good. In this match alone, WE have been the ones that have been trying to start the plays on the bottom side of the map. However, RNG have been able to trade quite effectively. During the last replay, they were able to pick up an Infernal Dragon uncontested for themselves, and they picked up the first turret before the dive bottom lane because of the pressure that Shahu already had on the top side of the map.
It was a tempo shift. It was the fact that 694 and Mystic parked themselves into the mid lane as opposed to shoving out bottom, which gave access and offense to RNG. But speaking of offense...
Big fight in the bottom lane.
Hello.
Picks a fight against Shahu, but it just never looked like there was a chance in hell that he was going to win that one-on-one.
Yeah, not really expecting the damage output right there. He chose to take that fight.
He chose to take the fight, threw out the ultimate, didn't disarm Shahu at all. That's an incredibly fed rise now. 4-0 and 0. 957 is going to try and face check this. Wishcaster is there. But crucially, they pick up the bottom lane outer turret.
And that is one of the issues when you try to use that combo on Aurelia and then you don't connect with it. You're like, I guess this is it.
I'm dead.
Yep. And of course he holds onto his flash. He knew the second that it happened what the mistake was, and he didn't want to go far and burn. So don't look at Xie's flash and think, oh, but wait, why didn't you flash? You could have escaped. He was dead.
Poor timing as well. Just went back to base and picked up a Trinity Force for himself, which is a big item power spike for an Aurelia. But here it is again. He gets the stun, but why are you going in, Xie?
Yeah. Wouldn't just call it unlucky.
Press tab, see that he's got 3 kills. Go back into your lane and say, no, I'm not going for a fight.
He just wasn't expecting that damage.
Xie just wanted to fight, it seems, but WE going to try and take another objective for themselves, looking for a fight around Rift Terror. Letme just burnt his flash, trying to disengage, but throws out the ultimate for the long range engage again. 1,500 hit points. RNG going to try and take aggro of this, but 957 wants to join the fight. Still Minina, nowhere close to Mega. Double lockdown coming out from Pepper, but instantly deleted. RNG start the fight strong. Good return kill coming out from 957. We'll get the support of RNG. 694, Force uses great health nice and early, but Xie going to dive into backlines again. Uses the perfect timing to split up the fight. Caster's in a lot of trouble. One more attack would take him down. Oh no, Mega Nah! 957 gets killed before he can transform. Now Mystic stuck on the front lines, forced to try and kite this one back. Letme wants to get the double knockup, gets it successfully. Mystic's going to fall, and RNG clean up the team fight.
The expectations coming into this game is it should have been WE had control of the early game, RNG would get control of the mid game, and then Team WE could try to close it in the late game. This is the window of power for RNG, and this is why they're so devastating. They 100% recognize that. They walk into the fight, they know that they're strong right now, they picked for the team fight, Letme using the Ornn ultimate from behind the wall just to make it that much harder, that much of a less reaction window you have to dodge it out. And then it also came to execution. So still a very close team fight, played front to back beautifully, but the huge win for me was killing the Mega Gnar before he got into the back line. I feel like he was literally in air as it happened.
Because there were a couple of cute plays. First was Xie jumping in using the stopwatch, then 957. He was one auto attack off of going Mega.
And look at that vision. 1, 2, 3, 4 control wards from RNG, completely controlling that area. 957 rocks into that brush, and he cannot see Shahu. So Rise is, of course, going to unload the damage before he's even able to react.
It was close coming out from WE in terms of their execution, but unfortunately, because they fell short, they crashed. And off the back of that team fight, RNG able to pick up a sizable lead for themselves, now sitting 4,000 gold ahead of WE.
And the reality of this game is that Team WE should have had the lane assignments. They should have been able to capitalize on the early game, but RNG are just too flexible. They make the beautiful lane swap. They suddenly are feeding all of these kills onto the Rise, running away with an early game they never should have gotten as far ahead, and then it just makes their mid-game power spike with this composition that much more devastating.
And just looking through the items at the moment, even somebody like Shahu, who is 6-0-0, has 2 completed items with Boots 2 and a 10-stack Dark Seal. From this point onwards, it's going to be so difficult to not only kill him, but also the rest of RNG. They just look too good right now. Trying to get another gank on towards Mystic's well, 694. Mystic's still confident, still turning around and standing his own, holding his ground against RNG, but just hasn't been enough so far.
I mean, the hopes is it has to be a 5v5. A Shahu, fancy footwork, see ya, nerds.
Gets away.
it has to be a wombo combo from Team WE, and you can see it with the composition. They have the Jarvan, they have the
They've
Gnar.
got the tools.
Yeah, they're looking for the cannonball. But that last team fight, the Mega Gnar never came out. Missed execution. We know that Mystic's strong. We know that Mystic's confident, so do not let that gold lead deceive you. There are still hope for Team WE, but everyone can see it. Everyone knows what's going to happen, which means RNG now, and they just need to avoid it.
It's one of the flaws of Gnar in the top lane, similar to Gangplank. You don't really want to teleport into the fight, you really want setup. He can set up through the lane and pick up a rage beater for himself, but if he was there at that Rift Tower fight much earlier, he could have had the rage bar ready, could have gone in at the same time as Pepper.
He's so far behind as well, and it's only getting worse now that we actually have initial resistance items coming out.
He doesn't even have one item complete.
Exactly, because he's so far behind. But let's remind ourselves that he laned against Shahu. And it's 133 to 194. He just got absolutely dumpstered, and so suddenly there's no front line for Team WE, which is why RNG feels so confident to fight right now. They have damage threats on pretty much their entire composition, and they have the resistances coming out.
We don't even have to look at his laning counterpart of Shahu. We can just look at the straight top laner for top laner matchup. Letme, who is in the mid lane, doesn't have those 6 kills, just 1 and 5 assists, 50 CS up, and has a full item over 957 at the moment.
And now you're in a situation where 957 can't team fight as effectively as he needs to because he doesn't have the ability to tank, and he also can't 1v1, especially not against Ryze.
Oh, Pepper's even going towards a damage-oriented build, picks up the Warrior's Enchantment first on Jarvan, so he's going to be incredibly squishy going into these fights. We saw how fast he was taken down in that last team fight, flagged and dragged in, didn't get anyone with the combo, popped the ultimate, immediately died. Yes, shortly after Ming fell, but you trade your jungler for support almost any day.
It's a dire situation, and it's only about to get worse. So double Infernal, 6-0 on the Rise, and we're now playing around the Baron. And why this is so terrifying is that we're playing around a Realm War Baron. So if Team WE aren't on their best behavior, if they... Okay, so Shahu with the Rise matching up against the Gnar, it's because there's so much kill pressure there. Even if it's Ornn, if Ryze manages to rotate down, there's still a lot of kill pressure there. All RNG need to do is burn one of these TPs, and then they can so easily outposition, outmaneuver, and just blast this Baron down to close the game. And so Team WE, they're holding on by just the tips of their fingers right now, just sliding down ever so slightly.
They have the tools to look for a pick themselves. 2 items on Mystic. He's keeping up well against Abel at the moment. 30 CS up over Kai'Sa.
But it has to be a pick. This has to be like a massive hit and run, like Thieves in the Night.
Like kill Kai'Sa, take Baron, try
a
and come back to the match.
Straight mugging, if you will.
If they can find it. They have the tools if they get some sort of luck in team fights to shred armor through the Black Cleaver of 957 and Mystic to try and kite these ones out. We've seen how well he's played so far in this series. But not too many ways for them to try and approach this besides sitting back, relaxing.
Oh no.
Oh, that's a disaster as well. You can't relax after you get knocked out of your flag and drag almost twice. But Sia's the one that's in trouble in the bottom lane. Throws out the ultimate again, doesn't disarm. Shahu gets the kill. Tarmsgate's going to try and jump in. Dodges the arrow. Fancy footwork. Shahu, the big tiger.
And here's the thing. Shahu, he can play Ryze, he can play Vladimir, he can play Zoe, and as long as he keeps getting those champions, he's going to keep doing plays like that. Now, meanwhile, so many members bottom means that it's going to be an open Baron. Now, Pepper doesn't have Flash, but he does have Flag and Drag.
I don't care about this Baron anymore. I just want to watch Shahu do that all over again in the bottom lane. Pepper, he's walking behind the Baron pit to try and see if he can go for a steal. RNG simply just disengage and say, we're not going to give you any opportunity to find a sneaky way back to this match. Let's let our blue men in the bottom lane continue to chip away at this time.
Yeah, but the damage has been done. Like you're saying, RNG are still going to get something for their efforts. I like the fact that Team WE play Ring Around the Rosies. They managed to take a mid lane tower and defend the Baron, but at this point, it's just trying to staunch the bleeding.
Trying, but I don't think they can do enough at the moment. This is the second time that there's been a solo kill picked up by Shahu. This time, Sia obviously didn't want that fight. Doesn't matter.
No one can deal with Shahu right now. We saw the Gnar rotate away from him. Xie thought that he'd at least be safe enough to disengage. And Blue Suede choose.
7-0-0. Is this one of Shahu's 6 gear games? Because he's trying to step it up a notch. He's had some assistance, but he's just looked so good so far.
Yes, Shahu is definitely performing this series, but until I'm ready to get behind Little Tiger, I need to see it more than just this series.
3 items complete for Shahu with his boots too. Morello Nomicon was picked up. I think at this point, WE would want to try and disconnect his cable somehow, because I think the only way they can get back into this match is to take Shahu out of it.
Let's be honest, as long as Shahu has 2 arms, I don't think there's a lot of hope.
Last I checked, he still has 2 arms, but the crowd at Shen still cheering for WE, hoping there's a way for their team to find a way back into this match. But RNG are playing this one stock standard. You can see them setting up with vision. Control wards being placed around the Baron pit, sweeping away any of the wards that were placed down by WE earlier. Teleport is available for Shahu, and he's currently split pushing on the opposite side of the map in the bottom lane, drawing pressure down there and forcing Sia to play aggressively here. Might even look for another pick.
Shie has wised up. He's like, yes, yes, I know. Possible arrow?
He's learned not to go towards that bush anymore.
957 is, that's so unfortunate. So I was watching the minimap during that, and you could tell that Mystic wanted to step forward, look for the arrow, felt confident because Kench was right next to him. But 957 up in river, procced Meganar too early, I believe, clearing out either Scuttle or a ward.
Which is unfortunate, could have found a flank there. I really like that addition of Mystic to the roster. From what I've seen from
the addition. The return.
The return of Mystic to the roster of W. From what I've seen so far, in amongst all the 80 carries, he's the one who is the most confident and is able to step up when the team actually needs him to. Haven't seen that much out of Gentle or Imp so far when they've played for WE. Stop it! No! You're a troll! Quite literally, actually.
Trying to bait out the 2 blue orbs that Team WE still have, as well as the Hawk Shot, but making sure that they stagger those cooldowns.
They got the Hawk Shot, but RNG are going to continue playing quite passively around this Baron, which bit them quite hard in the Rogue Warriors series when they tried to force.
I want to change up the language. I don't think it's passively, it's just the fact that they have multiple win conditions cross-map, because they know that this is a breaking point.
What?
Look at that damage!
They're going for a fight though. Shahu says, I'll take this, I'll be able to pop Sia's GA, as Mystic as well as 694 are able to collapse. Shahu's going to try and fight his way out of this one, but they end up getting him. RNG decide they have to turn and try and go for a fight. Abel jumps towards Pepper, forces the perfect timing out of the jungle of WE. Casa is going to be able to get that kill, but Cataclysm locks RNG in the pits for a little bit longer. So eventually just a 1-for-1 trade.
But it's that much more devastating, and RNG are going to continue to run this play. So Team WE, good job. They are delaying the Baron. They've delayed it now for about 6 minutes, repeatedly throwing bodies at the problem.
Not bad.
But the issue is that the GA has now popped, so it's that much easier to kill the bottom lane. And the rest of RNG are getting stronger, which means their ability to use Double Infernal and burn the Baron faster is getting higher. So RNG have only really been stalled out because it's enough time that, okay, we can't take down the Baron at this point. But that's no longer going to be the case. Like, the breaking point is coming.
Why aren't you going to try and start Baron once again? Let's see if WE can defuse the problem once more.
Screw it, I'm not even going to go bottom.
Teleport straight in towards the Baron pit coming out. Teleports now from WE to try and collapse, but already at 3,000 hit points. They're going to try and burn this one and successfully do so. Drop ship back towards the red buff. Gets RNG straight out of there. And WE were able to solve the problem of Baron for quite some time, but RNG force it, get it for themselves.
And this is why I still love Ryze for his utility. The fact that he fundamentally changes how teams approach the Baron, not just in starting it, but also in getting away from it. This late in the game, with the Double Infernal, as long as you can just pop the Baron, you're pretty much guaranteed it for free.
Ryze has got a bloody Rylai's as well. That's a very strong Ryze for Shahu at the moment. The side of Abel, he's gone for the Zhonya's Hourglass, so a very ability power focus build on his Kai'Sa. Still mostly AP damage coming out from the side of RNG, but there's no real tanks for WE's roster. 9x7 and Sia, both bruisers. Pepper's gone towards the damage route to start on his Jarvan. Only really looking towards 694, so building up abundance of resistances, not quite the strategy. But Mystic slowly picking up his items. Infinity Edge was complete for him. He's sitting at 3 items for his 80 carry.
The team fights go like this. If Team WE, in their Wombo combo, manage to kill multiple key targets, they will win the team fight. If they do not kill anyone in the massive Wombo combo, they have already lost the fight because they don't have the tank stats and they don't have the sustained damage outside of Ashe, and RNG have damage everywhere and so many tools to make Mystic's life a living hell.
Which is a shame for WE at this point, because you'd expect after their recent performance in the early game, they would have been able to hold their own against RNG. They were not able to do so in this match. Now the mid game has been broken wide open. RNG are pushing aggressively where WE are weak after picking up a tempo advantage to start this match.
close to a 10k gold advantage, and it's really speaking for itself. The fact that Team WE lost all access to playing side lanes because Shahu had kill pressure on them meant that Team WE couldn't get the necessary farm that they needed to onto their carries to try to front a 5v5 this late in the game. So 29 minutes, but normally Team WE would feel so much stronger and so much safer in looking for 5v5s at this point because they would have gotten that side lane gold where it needed to be. But Shahu made sure that he denied that. Team WE really truly are behind on multiple positions where they need it in their front line. And RNG are able to just continuously attack them in the 4-man unit and in the side lane.
You can already see that side lane working out as well. Shahu being a thorn in RNG's side, pushing through the mid lane, able to take down another turret. 957 threatening with Mega Knife. Is about to transform, so we'll give RNG some breathing room to continue with their siege once he turns back into Mini. But even the likes of Ming is being absolutely annoying at the moment on his Braum. Went for Unsealed Spellbook. Has Cleanse on Braum and constantly just steps forward and says, Mystic, you want to step up? That's fine. I've got a big door that's just going to make you irrelevant for the first few seconds of the fight.
Just very clever, but I do want to draw people's attention to the mini-map right now. Shahu is rotated from the mid lane towards the bottom lane. The wave is stacked up. This is what we're talking about, the RNG special. It seems so fundamental and basic, but this is why Team WE also want to force the fight.
Ming, oh, where did he go? Looked good to start, gets the stun as well, but Abel just pops him with the 4th hit of the passive. He's now going to try and dive into the base. 694 in trouble. That final auto attack going to deal a lot of damage. Forces the perfect timing coming up from 694. The Catfish will eventually fall, and RNG going to try and start a fight inside of WE's base. 957 nowhere close to Mega just yet. Starting to look for it, separated by the pillars. Shahu joins the fight as well. Gets 1 kill for himself. 957 wants to get back towards the safety of his turrets, but he's being gunned down by the rest of the members of RNG. They will lose their bottom lane, but 3 members strong. They're going to try and push towards the Nexus.
But the damage has been done. You can see Karsa on the minimap. He's making sure that Xie can't get back to his base, interrupting his recalls, and that leaves Shahu and Let Me on the towers with minions behind them. I think this is it.
Doing what they can. Mystic is back up and online, looking to try and stop them from pushing forward. Irelia able to get a kill onto Trundle as well, but Shahu, he wants this over! The Little Tigers had enough of your shenanigans in Sion as he gets that kill. The final turret on top of the Nexus is going to fall as well. Sia doesn't quite get the stun. Forces the Guardian Angel out to the mid laner from WE. 694 wanting to protect him as well, but the duo of the solo laners with a triple knockup, and all the Rise combos going through as well. Fighting just beyond the fountain. And RNG, just with 2 members inside of the base of WE, look like they can just take them right here, right now. There's nothing that they can really do to stop this man.
They're already dead! Leave them alone!
Forced 957 to go back towards the turret again. They're sliding on in, looking to do what they can, but Shahu doesn't care. Gets another kill for himself. Finally, Rise is going to fall. Let Me is the last man standing in this fight. Ming's going to join. Unfortunately, joins to die off the back half of this fight as Sia as well as 957 clean up the fight.
Okay, fun fact, Ming walked from his Nexus all the way down mid lane, over into that fight, throws the exhaust down, and then dies. Meanwhile, Abel was also running down mid lane from Nexus like, I'm coming, Ming. Baby, I'm almost there. He was looking to give him the Quadra.
Chaotic fight, though.
I think we're getting a bit of a flex. You can hear it from the crowd. I think RNG getting a bit hypey.
If you watch Shahu's player cam after he died, he was ecstatic. He was laughing.
Cackling.
He was quite happy with that big play they were making there, and unfortunately for Team WE, Rise is now at 6 items. He's completed his build and even upgraded his Rabadon's death cap as well.
He's 11 and 2.
He's a big boy.
It's pretty easy for RNG just to decide that they want to group up and walk into the base and take it all, raise it to the ground.
He's got his big boy pants, and it's nothing much that WE can do to stop him at the moment. Mystic's gone towards a Hex Drinker and a second Zeal to try and keep up with damage, but if someone from RNG even looks aggressively at Mystic, Mystic's gonna die.
When the observer recognizes which horse is the safe one to bet on. I think 33 minutes is a little bit late in the game to really start pulling up the stats for RNG.
Stats of RNG.
Again.
We should have put it up when Rise was, what, 7-0?
WE are already dead. It's fine.
I've seen comebacks before. WE can take it to the late game. Just the question is, how can they actually do just that? Because it seems nigh impossible. And even if they could take it to the late game, RNG's composition does find late game themselves.
They've already found late game fish. They've already got the items.
RNG are in the late game, whereas WE are still stuck in the farming phases of League of Legends.
Oh my god.
Please, just get that off my screen right now.
To be fair, Shea was close.
He did.
And he picked up a lot of kills there, as
This
well
was
as some
after he
bounties.
died off the start of that team fight and came back to clean it up.
He's got a lot of gold.
He does.
Got his helm now, feeling good.
But he doesn't have Baron, which RNG going to pick up nice and easy.
Abel
No
helping.
contest. Of course, Abel got a little bit of damage there, so, you know, relevant. Not going to be sacked anytime soon.
So now what RNG want to do is it looks like they're going to try to be fairly clean about this. They kick Shahu out to the top side. They're going to try to get multiple waves in, but this is one or an ultimate away from disaster for Team WE. And you want to see miracles, Fish? There better be one right now. Time to buckle up.
WE dial the number of IME, figure out how they were able to stop this exact play from taking place, because getting close to that as being what WE need to try and get back into this. One W from Abel takes away a quarter of Mystic's health.
Bad timing on 957's Meganar right there. It's just about to fall.
It's gone. As soon as Meganar disappears, RNG gonna try and start this fight. Mystic in a good position for now. RNG grouped up as 5. They take the first inhibitor. Great Arrow's gonna come through, locks down Shahu. Shahu in a lot of trouble, and he's dead! The super carry of RNG has been taken out to start the fight, but there's one more left, and that's gonna be on the likes of Abel. Diving into the backlines. Mystic, the last member standing. They got the raid boss, but the add-ons of the minions of RNG are too strong, and they take down WE 2-0.
And quietly, the orb-walking monster of Abel, 6-1-8, finishing the game. Shahu, he did a lot of the heavy lifting, but in the end, there were too many damage threats. The gold lead was too insurmountable, and the kings of RNG raised Xi'an to the ground.
First match was back and forth in a very long extended game at that, but the second match, although went for an extended period of time, was always in control of RNG. They showed their class in this match. Abel got to step up on his AD carries, and they definitely corrected a lot of their weaknesses and mistakes from game 1 going into game 2.
You can see no bad blood between these teams. In fact, Pepper getting a lot of love from multiple members of RNG as a very well-deserved bow. RNG looking much better in form after their recent upsets and rocky mid-split.
That's one thing I've always liked about the LPL. The teams, even though major rivals, always friends at the end of the day. I mean, we saw when RNG played against Rogue Warriors, they took the same damn elevator to go up to the stage. And they were joking and laughing before going into the match. This game, no different. After WE fall at their home stadium, RNG go over to shake hands, and they're going to be happy to bounce back. It's not a victory they should be elated about, because WE are technically bottom of the table, but at least a sigh of relief after a devastating start to cross-conference.
I've got good news for Team WE fans. If you look at the strength of schedule ahead of them, kind of the worst is over. They've almost weathered the storm. Next week, they'll face both BLG as well as Vici Gaming. It's not going to get any easier than that in terms of looking at the standings to try to pick up those last final wins. And then it's immediately back into OMG as their first game back into their domestic conference. So this was the last hurdle. Yes, you still got the EDG and the Snake to look forward to your domestic conference, but next week you must commit, you must execute on BLG or Vici, or it may be over before it begins in terms of a playoff race and any shot at Worlds.
Well, the opposite could happen too. Like, yes, it could be the end of the playoff race for WE if they falter to those two teams, but BLG and Vici are desperate to try and pick up points themselves. Could be a good slingshot for them to try and take down WE while they are weak. Going towards RNG, yes, they don't have Uzi, but definitely looking better and better as they try to adjust without having him on the roster. And it's coming to a point where we're getting closer and closer to the second round of interconference, where we have to start looking to when does Uzi actually come back for this team?
I think you would wait until playoffs, especially when RNG are performing like that. Now, caliber of competition, it was Team WE, so there's not a ton that we can extrapolate here, but even just looking how they're drafting their compositions, how they're team fighting again, Shahu in particular looking much stronger, especially on both his Vladimir and his Ryze pick. So I think there are still good things to take away from here, even if you just cover up the fact that they were against a very weak WE.
Cover up the Band-Aid problems, but one thing that was definitely not a Band-Aid solution in this match was Shahu, because we said that picking up Zoe or Vladimir would be a Band-Aid solution, give him a champion that he's fairly comfortable on and does okay. But Ryze is one of his signature picks and shows why in this match that it is his signature pick. If they give MVP to anyone else, that is absolutely insane.
And I don't think that they're going to give the MVP or man of the match to anyone else. I do want to say, though, that it wasn't just Shahu. I loved the iteration of mixing up the lane assignments, the fact that, again, they're weaponizing their 8-man roster, and even though they didn't make any adjustments for this match in particular, you know, kept Karsa in, kept Let Me in, didn't flex them for their rotations, but they were able to move Let Me into that mid lane, move Shahu into the top lane. So you're still seeing some of the blueprints left over of what they've been practicing for these last few weeks.
And we saw those two get up to some unorthodox shenanigans inside the WE base, going for a final team fight, just keeping them at the fountain. Said, you know what, you shall not pass. This is our base now.
My favorite moment is still, if you look at the minimap, Ming and Abel just, I'm coming, hold the line. That's some real Hordor shit right there.
Ming was able to rotate over, puts the exhaust down, jumps in, punches someone a couple times, said, I've made a big mistake. I'm dead.
Is it a mistake or is he just trusting? We don't know what's happening in the comms right there. He's like, nah, come in.
I'd be pretty salty if I was a support and I just walked from my fountain to the enemy fountain and died again. I'm like, well, I've got to make that trip another time. That was not worth it.
I'm sorry, Fish, if that ever happens, you have no one to blame but yourself. You had like 45 seconds to make the terrible decision. You're like, yeah, this is fine. Okay, yeah, I see that they're losing. Totally fine. Okay, yeah.
Kind of reaffirms the fact that Ming is the secondary shot caller there. Because if he was shot calling, he'd be like, no, please stop. Stop fooling around. Stop playing with your food. Actually, get out of that base and close this game out clinically, which RNG were eventually able to do. I mean, they reset, picked up Baron, 10,000 gold lead. They played it quite well. WE had that Hail Mary play of killing Shahu. It was a great Ash arrow that came out from Misty to lock him down, but by that point, the damage was already done. Even though Shahu died straight away, Abel was just way too fed and was able to get to the back line nice and easy.
For me, the big problem was that Team WE weren't able to capitalize on the composition that they had put together in the early game. You know, they should have had more power up into the top lane for the Gnar. Again, the lane assignments, the mix-up from RNG, the fact that Team WE didn't try to react to it at all and just let 957 fall further and further behind, you need to have a game plan for that because this is how 8-13 exists now.
But off the back of that decisive game from RNG, Shahu was able to pick up MVP. And
Shocker.
Of course, Shahu picks up MVP after that match.
11-3-2. Just watch the highlights of this series. I think that's all you really need, and that's pretty much the entire game, in all honesty.
Despite us saying that he's had a lackluster split so far, he hasn't been the impressive Super Saiyan Shahu that we want to see out of RNG. 7 MVP performances so far for the side of RNG.
That's a strong Vegeta performance, if I have to say. It wasn't quite like Goku level, but, you know, we turned yellow.
Just doesn't have all the Dragon Balls just yet, but good performance coming out from Shahu. What? No?
He revealed himself. It's fine. Continue, Fish.
I know. I do not watch any of these things. She knows.
They know.
Everyone back at home knows as well. But with that match away, let's take a look at how the LPL stands at the moment because RNG are still in the 3rd place spot. But with that win, they overtake JDG for now. They have the match record. But JD still have a game in hand. If they're able to win there, they'll go straight back to the 2nd place spot.
And reminder that every single position on this ladder matters. If you haven't seen the LPL playoff schedule, it is absolutely brutal. It is the difference that if you finish in 1st place, that you are automatically seeded into the semifinals and 2 best-of-5s away from Worlds.
Pretty much. Also means that you get higher championship points as well, because you want to try and stack those up to get the 2nd seed going into the World Championship as well.
It's the difference between if RNG meet Edward Gaming before the finals or in the actual playoff run, which if you're RNG, you do not want to meet EDG. Like that historically does not go your way.
You do not want to. It went well for them doing spring finals, but not during the actual playoffs itself for many splits before that. But with the standings aside, we can take a look at the matches that we have tomorrow because there's only a week and a half of cross-conference left to play. There are going to be 3 matches tomorrow, with first up BLG taking on OMG, LGD taking on Rogue Warriors, and then our match of the week, Invictus Gaming taking on EDG.
And it's finally time for Scout to rip the mantle of best performing mid laner in the LPL away from Rookie's dead body and beat him with it. Scout, I hate to say it hurts coming out of my mouth, but he's playing really well right now.
Is he the best mid laner in the LPL for Oscar? Because statistically, he is the best mid laner in the LPL.
He gets to prove it tomorrow, which I won't reveal who I'm betting on.
He's going to try and prove it going up against a rookie for Invictus Gaming. This is a top-of-the-table clash and a preview of what our playoffs could potentially look like because we're still looking towards those top 4 of IG, Rogue Warriors, RNG as well as EDG to be the main 4 going into towards semifinals and finals.
I mean, it's frankly always just going to be exciting when our top 4, top 5 teams clash, just because of the caliber of talent that we have in the LPL. Hopefully, both teams will be on form tomorrow, and hopefully we don't have any more of these weird drafting blunders from Edward Gaming.
Or 2 people trying to siege outside of the fountain and play with their food a little bit, as we saw in this match between RNG and Team WE. But that's the end of the broadcast tonight. We still have more action tomorrow, so we'll see you there for our match of the week as well as the rest of the LPL.